Hi everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join in. For those who already joined, we have the Miro board link in the chat box. You could open the link and get ready for the session. All right, should we start? Great. Hi everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening based on where you're joining us from. Welcome to yet another very interesting SI Design Hub workshop. Today's session is called Designing for Transition. The session will be recorded for future reference. So let's jumpstart with team introduction. Meet my wonderful colleague, Joss and Giselle. Joss is SI ecosystem builder, joining us from London. Giselle is systems and design thinker, joining in from Brazil. Myself, Roma Patadia. I'm a volunteer with SI Design Hub. I'm joining in from Bengaluru, and we are very excited to host today's workshop. We'd also like to know where you're joining us from. Feel free to type in your name and your location in the chat box. So a little bit about today's agenda. We'll start off with a small icebreaker exercise, and then we'll head on to introduction of what transition design is and when to use it. And then Giselle will talk about what are the resources, frameworks, and some of the case studies out there. Then we'll understand different tools available for transition design. And in the end, we will collaborate on a co-creative workshop to get hands-on experience of using transition design canvas. In the end, we will explore some of the next steps with SI Design Hub and then get your feedback. So let's start with the icebreaker. For those who are using Miro board for the first time, Miro board is fairly easy to use. You could click on the sticky note icon, drag a sticky note, you could write in your thoughts, resize it as you like, and then drag it around on the board, place it wherever you like. And you could also zoom in, zoom out, and pan. So these are some of the functions that we'll be using today. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box and happy to help. So for the so the icebreaker is in 3 parts. For the first part, let's rate our experience level with transition design through dot voting method. Feel free to pick any of these colorful dots you see here and place it on this dotted line based on your experience level, anywhere between just being curious or you're an expert. We'd like to see everyone rate themselves over here on the dotted line. Wow, so we see a lot of us exploring, getting familiar with the ideas. That's interesting. Okay, and then we have a couple of us trying to apply these concepts. And then we have some of us curious, absolutely fine. Perfect. So if you're done with the part 1, let's look at part 2 and 3. We can do that simultaneously. So in the part 2, we'd like to know what you're hoping to gain or explore from this event. What are your expectations? Feel free to type it in one of these keynotes. And then we'd also like to know which industry you're from and your LinkedIn profile so we could all connect with each other. So let's take a couple of minutes to do that. Interesting. So learn about the tools, the concept, new knowledge, inspiration for education. Great. So thank you so much for your active participation in the icebreaker. For those who are not able to complete the exercise, it's fine to come back and do it later. For now, let's start with introduction of what transition design is. Over to you, Joss.
Thank you very much, Roma. Good to see everyone else here. And let's just say a few words about what we mean by transitions and some of the key aspects of those. For sure, our models, our templates that we're going to be using need to build upon, the nature of what transitions are and how they play out. So transition design is very key to systems change and systems innovation, taking us from a current system to a future system. It's actually a core kind of study in the area of complexity theory, how complex systems transform from one paradigm or regime to another, can play out in all kinds of systems, from political regimes to businesses or ecosystems and so forth. And there's certain dynamics going on there that you'll see across common patterns across those different types of systems, and how they go from, one state to another. We won't kind of dig into all of the complexity theory at this stage, but one thing that's present in all of this is time, right? A transition implies over a period of time, things are going to change, right? So time and change are core to all of this. A transition or transformation implies fundamental changes to the very system and its structure and so forth. So we're always going to have time as a dimension here. There's the past, present, there's a transition period, and there's a future state out of which a new kind of system is going to emerge. And we're interested in that process, right? So, one example is the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, and this is a linear period of change when it gets, incrementally better. But we know there's this transformative period, right, where it's dissolved and then reconstituted into a new system, a new pattern of organization. And we see that in butterflies, caterpillars to butterflies is the most extreme example, but of course we see it, as mentioned, in all kinds of systems, including our own lives. And that's a great place to learn from, right? We think about how we went from a child to a teenager to an adult, and the kind of transition periods and the crisis we encountered, to get from being a teenager to being an adult, trying to find a job, and all of these challenges we had to overcome, and the period, critical moments when we transformed and changed. So all of those kind of insights can inform how we think about and how we approach transition design in, complex organizations. And we're going to talk about the core dimensions, but as mentioned, there's time, there's the present, there's this transition, there's a future, and there's an incumbent system, right? And the implication is that the incumbent system is no longer fit for purpose. Something has changed in the environment that is rendering the incumbent system no longer fit for purpose. And it may be actually disintegrating or going downhill over time. But there's always a new innovations that are emerging, are bubbling up in response to changes in the environment. And the transition period is when those things essentially flip. These new innovations enter into the mainstream, the incumbent system becomes disrupted, and that interaction creates a lot of chaos. And some people call it a washing machine sort of thing, where they interact and you get a lot of confusion and chaos. And something comes out of that in the future, whether it's an aspirational future or whether it's business as usual kind of capturing things. So when we look across a wide variety of transition processes, we can identify, we'll be looking at a number of models now in a minute, and we'll see in those models they have certain commonalities. And we can say these three things about transition periods. One, of course, is it plays out over time. Two is that there's a way of, it's about the way of organizing that system and how do we organize and arrange that system. And there's always an incumbent because we're not starting from scratch. We're not designing a new paper airplane or something. We're designing a transition, which implies something exists already and it's transitioning to something else. And that implies there's a current way of operating in that system. So that's always there. There's always going to be new innovations and drivers of change, because we're saying that something's changing in the environment that's rendering the incumbent system no longer fit for purpose. And there are new innovations that are adapted to that new context. And we're trying to enable a transition from the incumbent system to this new paradigm with the introduction of these new innovations. So those are key aspects in all transition processes, and they play out over time. But transition also implies that it's not a linear process of change, just something getting bigger and better. It's not the caterpillar just eating more and getting fatter and faster and so forth. Something is actually needs to die and something needs to be born again. The caterpillar actually is dissolved and is born again as a butterfly. So to get transformation, we can't just project out the present into the future. something, the incumbent system, needs to disintegrate in some way. Something needs to be let go of. And new innovations need to be developed and grown, and a transition of resources from the incumbent to the new system for this to be successful. And those are some of the core kind of aspects and dimensions of a transition process. I'm going to pass it over to Giselle, but we'll look now in a minute at different models, and we'll see how all of these are represented in those models. Also, if you have any questions about any of that, you can put it into the chat, and I might be able to pick up on that later, but I'll pass it to Giselle for now.
Okay, hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. And I'd like to share some finds you get from in a quick research on the internet. I think the most important reference we have found on the internet about transitions design is Terry Rein. She starts the movement and brings this approach with mix if theories change and new ways to designing and visions for transitions. She leads Transitions Design Institute. And here we have we don't have a fixed framework as you have in design thinking when you have a double diamond, for example, but we have a flow in this transition. So another reference we have found is Zeynep. She was with us in the last workshops and started this series. And Zeynep brings this flow in three stages. And the first stage, we have tools from systems thinking, and we have to map scenarios and context and with the challenge using systems thinking tools. And the second stage, you have a future knowledge. So it's about a type of narratives. So you have tools from design futures to explore scenarios and craft narratives to a desirable future. And the last stage, it's about transitional knowledge. So you have tools for strategy, create strategies to interventions. And also you use the tools from system thinking, such as leverage points. Here we share with you Follows Toolbox, and you can free download for some canvas to test. And also you share some another reference, and here you have some links to for those who want to deep dive and get some knowledge about how we apply in transitions design and social innovations and other files. And you have this case studies and articles for this. So here you can see several different frameworks, but it's the same flow. It's about to understand context and create a desirable future and mapping strategy how to create interventions design points. And now you are exploring some tools we have applied. You have here an essay and a pass to just
Thank
lead
you.
us in this explore too. So
Thank you, Giselle. So you'll see all the links there, right? You'll be able to explore
yeah.
all of those resources. So to pick up on some tools here before we go into a bit of a workshop, we're going to be working on this canvas today around a challenge where we will be kind of exploring these different dimensions of transition design. But to show you some of the other models and templates that are out there, and again, they're kind of building upon the ideas that I showed you before. You may have heard of some of them, like this one, the Three Horizons framework by Bill Sharp, and it's quite a prominent, popular one. Comes a lot from the world of futures and foresight and so forth. And this one, yeah, it's looking at those different dimensions. The in the center here, we've got the drivers of change. These are the innovations or changes in the environment that are necessitating change within the system so that we can't go on doing business as usual. Could be things like climate change, could be, demographics changes, could be technological changes, autonomous vehicles, whatever it is. At the top, we've got business as usual, the incumbents, and the assumption is that they're declining because they're no longer fit for purpose. And then down here, we have the new innovations, the aspirational innovations that we're hoping we'll be able to support to become the next generation of the system. And you can see the present here in terms of how prominent each of those is in the current system. We have the transition period in the center here, and then in the future, we have a current state. And as with all transitions, it's uncertain. We don't know how things will play out, and there will always be an interaction space here of possibilities and different combinations that could form. And the incumbent system may capture these new innovations to perpetuate itself. The new innovations may leverage them to really create this aspirational future, so on and so forth. There's a number of different ways that could play out. So it's a tool to help people think about the future and how these different forces that are at play in this transition period may interact and what kind of scenarios they could lead to in the future. How many people are familiar with this Three Horizons framework? Put your hand up. Yeah, digital hand or real hand. Okay, a few people have heard of it, not everyone. Okay, we've got a few hands up. Great. If you have any questions as they go along, feel free to put them in chat. So you'll find a lot more about the Three Horizons out there on the internet because it's quite prominent, quite well known. Let's stay going along. So here's another popular one. It's called the multi-level perspective. And it lays out three levels. On the top level, we've got the landscape, which are the big changes out there in the environment, like climate change, like globalization or the rise of the internet or something like that. In the center, we have the incumbent system, the current way of doing things. And on the bottom, we have the new innovations bubbling up. And the idea is that this landscape changes may create windows of opportunity for these new innovations to rise and disrupt the incumbents and potentially form a new system. So it lays out that change in a socio-technical system and asks, how might we support this? How might we nurture and develop these new innovations or think about this transition process? So that's another one by Frank Giels, The Multi-Level Perspective. You'll find links here to the canvases on the website, but you'll also find references out there on the internet. Here's another one. It's a two loops model. And again, it's looking at an incumbent system here, and which is this loop at the top, how the incumbent system has risen and has reached its kind of dominance and is declining because it's no longer fit for purpose. And a new system is emerging here, these new innovations. And the question is, how might we develop and nurture and connect and support them to become the next generation of this system? So this is the two loops model. It's also asking how can we kind of bridge the gap, bridge from the old system to the new system? How can we hospice and support the old system in letting going of its current way of operating and let go of the resources to support the new system? So this is a good one also, two loops model. Maybe I'll just pick up on one more. Well, there's two more here. The adaptive cycle and then backcasting. Backcasting is more of a futures tool, but it's really thinking about envisioning the future and then, tracing backwards from that in terms of how do we get there. The adaptive cycle is more thinking about the different stages of change and growth within a complex adaptive system. So you have everything from exploration, which is when a new system is forming, there's a new context, like in a ecosystem where there's fertile new ground, maybe after a forest fire or something, lots of new innovations can bubble up. Eventually they reach maturity, you get the apex mature kind of system. That can lead to crisis, in which case everything's falling to pieces, the resources are released again, and we have to find a kind of new paradigm and try and figure out a new way of organizing before the cycle starts again. And it represents this ongoing kind of change process within complex adaptive systems of all kinds as they go from new innovations to maturity and reach a peak and crisis and collapse and then reorganize and so forth. And that's another template. So actually, maybe if you're on the mirror board here, we could just have you do a little bit of collective intelligence. Which one of these do you find most interesting? We could use our little dot voting thing, couldn't we? So which one do you find most interesting here? If you could just grab a dot and bring it over there and place it on the one you think is most useful. So grab a dot there and bring it across. Maybe I'll make this a bit bigger. Multi-level perspective, okay. Okay, you're interested in all of them. Any questions on these, or you're good? You'll find the links as mentioned on the canvases. Okay, you're interested in the multi-level perspective and the three horizons, namely. Alrighty. Okay, so let's dig up a moment. Let's see, how are we doing for time, actually? So, good. We are kind of on time. We've got 40 minutes, yeah, we've got about an hour left for our workshop and discussion around this. We should be good. So, this template here has been designed and organized to try and bring together some of those ideas. And it's a tool, an exercise for us to play with and learn about the different dimensions here. And we have it on the website. It's called this Transition Design Canvas. It's not the only way of doing things. There's lots of ways of doing this, but it tries to bring together some of those dimensions we talked about before. And we're going to take a challenge today. And the challenge is Nissan, the car company. Don't know if you've heard about them. They're kind of struggling these days. It seems they haven't been able to innovate and adapt and really transform to the new world of mobility. Fortunately, we're here to help them with it today. So we're going to figure all this out for them. And we're going to use our canvas to do that. So we're trying to help Nissan transition to a new paradigm in their production that would enable them to survive and thrive in this new world of mobility that might be autonomous and ride sharing and all this sort of stuff that we'll talk about today. So before we do all that, let's understand a little bit our toolkit here, our canvas. So where we're going to start, you'll see it laid out actually up here if you need reference at any time, and it's in the canvas. So we're going to start here, macro changes. So asking what are the big changes out there in the environment? And we're going to walk through this in a minute. I just want to give you an overview to the whole thing. And you'll see in the circle, we've laid out the factors, socio-ecological, socio-cultural ones up here. So politics and, mental models and education and social factors, cultural factors, we're going to put them up there. Economics, finance, business, everything to do with that's going to go up here on the top right. Technological, going to go down here, bottom right, environmental factors, water, land usage, so on and so forth. We're going to use it down here on the bottom left. And that's where we're going to start, but I'm going to quickly iterate through the others so you get an idea of where we're going. We're then going to, once we've posted up, what are the big things changing out there in the world that's necessitating change for Nissan, right? Nissan are going downhill. Nissan are the incumbents. They were built for a world of the past. You know, we were talking about it back here, weren't we? This is Nissan. They were built in the industrial age. They're going downhill. Can they reinvent themselves? Can they transform to actually become something more aspirational and more relevant for the new world of mobility? We're going to find out about that. So this is the macro environment out there. We're going to then think about actually what does Nissan look like at the moment? How is business as usual for a car company like Nissan across these different dimensions? Then we're going to think about the opportunity space. What could they be? What would be relevant for this new world of autonomous vehicles and ride sharing and all of this electric mobility? And we're going to think about that across the different dimensions. What's possible now in terms of environmental, technological, business factors? That's where we'll go. And afterwards, we'll be looking at how do we get from business as usual to this new aspirational future? What are the blockers? What are the enablers of that? And what's the pathway that could leverage those enablers to overcome those blockers? Hopefully that's making sense. Hopefully you see some of the dimensions we've been talking about before. Hopefully we're going to fix this problem for Nissan because their shares just dropped, I don't know, 20, 30% recently, I heard. So it's important business. Let's jump into it. Everybody have a Miraboard link. Please join me here. We're going to get started. I'm going to bring all of you to me. And we're going to start out here, macro changes. So we've got about 50 minutes, 40 minutes. We'll take about 8 minutes or 8 minutes to do this. So please start posting. I'll give you a little example. Under economics, I put mobility as a service. It's a new way of doing your business model. Down here, we've got climate change. Under environment, could be many others. Obviously, a lot of technological stuff, socio-cultural stuff. Please start posting your stickies up. We're only working on the outer circle at this time. Please try to put them in the right section there so that we're able to, categorize them. Keep your stickies to a reasonable size, and off we go. We're going to take 8 minutes. Any questions about the exercise, please let me know. So just to remember, these are big changes in the environment. They may not even have anything to do with Nissan or mobility, right? It could be demographic changes or what could it be? You know, ecological collapse or water crisis or whatever it is that's going to influence this whole system. So I guess in this section, we want to try and avoid, presenting solutions and think more about actually what's going on in the context that's really going to influence this whole system. Maybe I'll give you another one of my examples here. So for a macro change, we put up climate change, but that's a big thing going on out there in the environment, affecting all of us. For business as usual in the environment sector, I put down they have combustion cars. That's what they're selling, fossil fuel-based cars. And then in the opportunity space, I put electric vehicles as an opportunity created by the influence of this macro trend of climate change. And then in here, I put through the blockers and enablers and pathways. Maybe we'll come to look about afterwards, but just trying to help you get an idea of like what might go in this outer circle in terms of those macro changes. Okay, maybe we'll just take a couple of minutes to draw upon one or two people to see what we're talking about here as examples. Brendan, you're at the top of my screen. Would you like to share a couple of stickies that you put up?
Sure. Well, under big economic changes, I put more international competition around cars and EVs, recession of globalization. So if you're Nissan, who are you exporting to? Who's buying your cars? That's kind of related to big picture changes. I put in tariffs there as a example. I see there are a couple other sticky notes around trade war. Also, on the economic front, just people having less disposable income on things like cost of living crisis, inflation. And then I put down increasing centralization of economic opportunity in a smaller number of urban centers. So it may be less need for cars as well on some level.
Excellent. Excellent. We could also like put in like digital currencies here too, couldn't we? Because they're a big change out there in the world. We might be able to leverage that in some way. Okay, anyone else? Nisa, anything you'd like to share that you put up here?
Hi. Yeah. I think I also wrote sustainability as a consumer behavior in general. People are becoming more conscious about how they consume um, things around them. So that's something I've written. And public infrastructure is, of course, getting better in some of the countries, and that's also a big thing. Yeah, I think also alternative fuel options are coming up, and some of the companies are slower in implementing these. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, already you're thinking of ones that I wouldn't have thought of. So hopefully you see the power of collective intelligence here. We're all kind of just see our part of the elephant. When you bring everyone together like this, we can get many ideas that we hadn't thought of. Sudesh, would you like to quickly share anything that you came up with here that we missed?
I think I am just thinking as to, I don't know about what Nissan is doing, but I was thinking as to whether they are investing in other ideas other than cars, like other technologies related to mobility, such as buses or are they only focused on cars? Is it that is leading to their downfall?
But would that come in this section?
No, I was first is tariffs, of course, that is one of the reasons I found. But I was just thinking from, because as to the incumbent system, as if we see, right, as to what is leading to their downfall is something. Are they aware? Like even if you see the news, they are showing that it is written that they are laying off 10,000 people, right? So I'm not able to.
I think, I think you're getting a little bit ahead of us, but good stuff. Let's start moving there then. So the next step, so that is, if we think about transformation, I think it is a response to the environment, right? It's when the whole context is changing. When the context is staying the same, we can just do more. We're probably already adapted to it. We can do a little bit more of what we do and try to improve things. It's when there's a paradigm shift in the environment that we need to transform. Brian?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. It's Bryony. Would you not have a political element
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah. So normally put that under socio-ecological.
Oh, so that would
socio-cultural. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's that's fine. I was just curious then, but I'll move on.
So it's a good point. You could structure these outer circles any way you want, any topics here, depending on, the challenge that you're dealing with. But what you do want is to get sufficient diversity. So you're encouraging and almost forcing people to think across different dimensions when they might normally just converge towards one dimension. But yes, political is there, and, education, all these other areas, you can post those up. Yeah. Okay, great. So for the sake of time, let's stay going. That was the macro environment that's driving change. Here is the incumbent. We want to think about where we are at the moment. Let's think across these 4 dimensions again. What does Nissan look like? Their way of operating, which is similar to any kind of industrial age auto company. What does that look like across their, regulation, as we talked about, across all the social, cultural factors here, economics, finance, business model here. Down here for technology and here for factors relating to the environment. For example, I've put up how their business model is currently based upon selling, these individual units of cars. And, environmentally, it relates to the combustion engine and so forth. So let's post up, let's take 8 minutes again, or maybe 7 minutes this time, to post up what does business as usual look like for Nissan across those dimensions. We've got a small circle, so let's try and keep our stickies small here, please. And off we go. Okay, let's maybe make this one a little bit shorter. Anybody want to share what does business as usual look like for Nissan? Japanese culture, disruption is making your boss lose face. That's yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, well, this is Japanese culture by essence, or maybe Asian culture, right? It's very high context. You will not never tell straight what you think. So if you want to, let's say, propose a change, your boss will lose his face. It's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, and very interesting in the context of what we're talking about here. What's the consequences of that over time, right? That accumulation of no one telling the boss what they really think, that has significant implications here when it comes to transformation.
It's interesting. Just a little side note. I had a workshop with a Japanese airline a couple of years ago about sustainability, and we kind of really prepared as well. And it was interesting. They gave two key pieces of feedback. One was about the company, which was very, let's say political, and the other one was personally. And they would say, personally, I would think this and this and that. So they kind of divided those two roles, and in this way, gave their opinion. It was very fascinating because we were very aware of this cultural issue.
Yeah, I posted a graphic the other day, the what's it called? The mum effect. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's quite an interesting one. It's the way you basically dumb down negative information when it's going up the hierarchy because you don't want to tell your boss bad things because it reflects on you and your job. And then they also dumb it down as they tell it to their boss. And the graphic kind of got the 5 layers of hierarchy at the bottom. It's things are terrible. And by the time it gets to the top, it's like everything's fine here, no problem, So that's this, isn't it? Like not being able to lose face and not be able to tell your boss, good feedback and so forth is ultimately going to accumulate and create challenges. Maybe we'll move on for the sake of time, because I think we kind of get what business as usual is like. The next one is to jump back out to the pockets of the future. These are Given these macro changes, what are the opportunity spaces that are opening up that Nissan could transition towards? They're creating opportunities for the next generation of Nissan in a really transformative way. So we're going to post those under these little plants here, all across again, socio-political, economic ones over there, or cultural ones over there, not economic, environmental ones, technological, and of course, economic ones. Could be business models and ways of doing finance. I talked about here on-demand ride sharing is a new business model. They could be leveraging that down here under environmental. I put electric vehicles. So these are whole new opportunity spaces that others are starting to move into, and they need to start considering as pathways to the next generation of their enterprise. So let's jump in there and start posting ideas up. We will take about 7 minutes to do that. We'll join you again afterwards. If you have any questions about that, if it's unclear, please let me know. Okay, Roma, anyone's you found interesting here you'd like to pick up on?
Sure. Okay.
I'll follow you.
Actually, I voted. Am I audible? Okay.
Yeah.
I like this one, the Ringy system. Decisions from bottom up make Nissan's workers aware of changes needed to survive future, which looks like an internal organizational change, which looks interesting. And then there is brand collaboration because the internal system is not willing to do collaboration. They could collaborate with another innovative company, and then they could have on-demand ride-sharing feed
Aren't you, I
and
think,
social.
are you jumping into solutions here? I think we need to explore some of the opportunity space first, don't we? Yeah.
Could you take over?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's just one thing about all these canvases. They work best when people post the right things in the right place, and then you get kind of coherence to the whole thing. So it's just one thing to remember. What we're trying to do is not just come up with solutions, but think about, okay, how is the environment changing, and how is that creating opportunities then for Nissan to move to a different model, and then we're going to start thinking about the pathways to get there. So anyone else? Clayton, Clayton, anything you'd like to share here?
I'm more as a viewer.
Okay. Yep. Anybody else? Giselle. Startup acquisition. Driverless cars. Marjolein, pronounce it correctly. Anything you have here?
It's Dutch. It's Marjolein.
Okay.
But I think I also stepped in the pitfall of coming up with solutions more than just observing what is happening. And it was way easier to come up with blockers. For instance, what I thought of was workforce capability gaps. But then I jumped to maybe if you invest in strategic learning and workforce reskilling. So I jumped to solutions as well.
Okay, that is the challenge, I think, because you see what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up to that so that our solutions are informed by the broader context and the opportunity space. Let's stay going then, and yeah, jump into now the challenges, the blockers and enablers for change. So we're here in this current paradigm. For example, we've got this culture. Someone's already started to help us out here. This culture of pleasing your boss, and you might want to shift away from that. What would be you see someone's put a blocker there of a closed, all right, you've already started working on this, but someone's put a blocker there of a closed mindset and an enabler there. Let's jump into that for about 5 minutes before we start to think about these pathways to this new opportunities out here. So take about 6 minutes across those 4 dimensions. The illustration I took here, moving towards on-demand ride-sharing fleets, but currently they have, selling individual units, car units, and a blocker is maybe their sales team, and obviously disrupting their current business model, which is not going to look good on the financial statements in the short run. So that's probably a reason why they don't want to do it. An enabler is maybe customers are really asking for this, and there's really a pull on that side of things that we could really leverage to make this happen. So let's look across those 4 dimensions, post up both enablers and blockers towards moving towards these opportunity space here. Okay, so blockers, resistance to behavioral change, individualistic choice. No one wants to give up their car. High investment in development and production, lack of understanding of the culture and systems shaping the transition, closed mindset, status that only a car, status that only a fancy car, and then enablers, more economic, accessible, and comfortable options to choose from, help change behavior. And the one we saw there before. Down here, enablers, mobility provider stimulus fund, local innovation entrepreneurs for conversion to new cars, piling inventory of unserviceable old cars is a blocker, building trust in people by keeping sustainability as a core value. Maybe that's more of a pathway. Down here, workforce capability is a blocker and an enabler, new generation of technical education, people joining the workforce. Okay, great. Let's just briefly then have a think about these pathways based upon the blockers and the enablers. How can we leverage those enablers to take us to where we want to go out here and overcome the blockers? So we'll just take 4 minutes and then we'll have some closing remarks as to how you found this whole exercise. And let's jump in there. Okay, maybe we start moving towards a close. We've just got 8 minutes or so left. Just going to pick up on a few things here. Then we'd love to hear some of your kind of reflections on the overall canvas, and then Roma will wrap up for us. So here, in terms of these pathways, shared ownership, neighborhood cars, what can we do to promote or design the things that enable the change? Okay, that's the question, but let's look down here. So we've got invest in strategic learning and workforce reskilling as a pathway. Debate, including companies, policymakers, and civil society. And that's trying to get us to, yeah, these ones down here. So here we've got policy push for ensuring cars don't reach landfills, circular approach to fleet and vehicle management. Great. And then up here we've got, yeah, the vision was for individual car ownership. So urban mobility becomes a systems opportunity. And leading into this, we've got more economical, accessible, and affordable options to choose from, help change behavior, total pivot from car into active travel. Car-free cities are having and using a car less attractive, so on and so forth. So how was that for you people? Maybe hear from a few of you before we draw to a close. This is the first time actually using this campus, so it's a good experiment. Hopefully I gave you an overview. Maybe Sidesh, would you like to share any kind of insights from this? Was it
Yeah,
useful?
so yeah, I was going to say anyway. So this is little kind of overwhelming, maybe because for my brain, it is maybe this design is little overcrowded. I don't know. It's maybe my brain is maybe it's now 10:30 p.m. so I'm not able to process. But maybe the tax might help. I don't know. That might be the reason I got confused initially. Right side you have given the labels, right, for the diagram, so that might have created. But this is an amazing way to, I think, brainstorm together.
Yeah.
I'm more used to the iceberg model to process at the systemic level. So I think it also depends on how one is interpreting which diagrams or which ways of learning might be helping people.
Yeah, it's quite
subjective. It is subjective, I think, maybe.
It's quite divergent, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
it means something else as we're talking about in our team when we're designing it to bring it back together, like dot voting or something to highlight the best ideas. I think we've, ideated a lot here, but you'd want to kind of bring them back together in the end to create something to take forwards. Who else wants to add here? Marjolein?
Yeah, I like the steps that you start with macro just to observe what's going on. I struggled a bit, like what I just said, with the blockers pathway and enablers. But I guess it's because of the first time. But it feels like in the end, it gives an all overview of what is happening and where the opportunities are, which I really like about the model.
I mean, maybe better designed as a kind of a one flow. I don't know if that would make it too kind of linear. Like we've actually gone, outwards across these different dimensions, and you'd need to bring it back together in some way. Could it be better that you had one flow where you have the different dimensions, economic, social, and environmental in that? That might simplify it and streamline it and make it less divergent, but a bit more linear. I don't know if that's a good thing. Ron, would you like to add anything here?
Yeah, I'm just typing it. Maybe you just have to add the steps you want to take on the canvas.
So those are, these ones are up here, but we could have numbered it or something.
Yeah, something like that. Very simple. I
Yeah.
cannot really reflect because I kind of entered halfway, so I missed the introduction. So I need to, let's say, go back to your introduction before I'm going to give feedback.
Okay. Anybody else? Clayton? Nisa?
Yeah, I think what I really liked was the also with the way you led the session to be able to separate. So we went first on the outside and then we directly went to the center of the circle, and that really helped to kind of separate. But then I think the in-betweens is where it got a bit more messy, like the pathways, blockers, enablers, and potential space. So it was more difficult to not think solution oriented there because we were already thinking in a very focused direction.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
I think if you combine it with the 3 horizons canvas, then you might also, it might be easier to come up with the pathways and the enablers because it's already on the 3 horizons canvas as well. I see the similarities there.
Yeah, we're trying to pick up on those main aspects we're talking about, but
Yeah.
laying it out, it's a bit, I guess it's quite divergent. This is what happens. I wonder if that's the best way. Yeah, I think you do need to come convergent again. Dot voting sort of stuff could be useful. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Giselle, Roma, Anna, Ty, Clayton?
I actually have a question. I mean, what?
Sorry, do you want to turn off your video, Roma? It's a bit.
If not the solutions, right? So I wanted to know, like, what we were supposed to think about in the potential space, if not the solutions.
So the potential space is like, what are the opportunities that are created by those big changes, right? So there is an opportunity here because of, changing technologies and economic models for doing the business model very differently. And then we're thinking about the pathway to get there. So in some sense, it is a solution, but it's better to think of it as kind of the opportunity created by the environment. Yeah. And, it's transition design. So the focus is not necessarily the outcome, it's the transition, right? That's the whole point. Yeah.
Just one thought, like maybe since we are not aware of I'm not much aware of the domain, right? Automobile. So I'm not able to come up, but like what is exactly happening in the space of Nissan? What are the leadership problems? So if you're even aware of the news and what's going on, maybe we can come up with more systemic solutions or ideas or problems, understanding the problem better.
Yeah, well, that's totally true. It's an exercise, and there
Yeah,
are definite limitations for us being, not involved in this space and seeing the canvas for the first time and only having 40, an hour or so. So all sorts of limitations, but let's draw to a close because our time is up. Thank you very much for participating. This, as mentioned, was a new canvas, so it was good to practice and play with it. I think I can start to see some of the ways it could be improved already in terms of too divergent. How do we bring it back together? I think there are better ways of doing it, but hopefully that was a useful session for you people, not just this canvas, but also for you to understand a bit more about the basics of transitions and how that can feed into different models that are out there, right? So I encourage you to explore these other templates, whether at SI or you'll definitely find them on the internet. As mentioned, the multi-level perspective, 3 horizons, these are all really good ones. And the 2 loops one, and maybe I'll pass it over to Roma to wrap up.
Sure. Thank you so much, Joss. Thank you, everybody, for this amazing collaboration on the board. So your next potential steps with SI would be you could join the Design Hub. It's a very active group, so you can also find all the resources there. And then follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe our YouTube channel. We also have a very interesting event coming up as part of Open Accelerator on July 2nd. It's going to be in depth about designing for transitions. And then this is the toolkit. You could click on this little icon over here on top to access the toolkit. It'll take you to the portal, and then you'll see a lot of other toolkits as well. Lastly, we would love to hear from you. How was your experience today? Feel free to pick one of the dots and place it between 0 and 10, 10 being super useful. And also, if you have any feedbacks, takeaways, recommendations, questions for us, please feel free to write down on the sticky notes. Thank you so much for being here, and see you on our next event.
Great. Thank you, guys. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Enjoy your day, evening, wherever you are.